I woke that morning with the sun already hot on my face, and the taste of wine is chewing my mouth, and I remember thinking that the day would be low to use. Our camp emerged like a hive. Laughter, the clink of bronze, the low grunts of men who had seen cities fan and kings beg. A lightness felt obscene for the war camp. Men braiding hair, children daring to steal a roast, officers trading boasts like counting queens. We were not merely confident, we were certain. Assyria had never been stopped. Why should Jerusalem be different? We spoke of our empire as a living thing, feeding on lesser nations, of bronze and blood as the only truths worth worshipping. Our voices rosy, certainty edging into madness, crushing 100 kings, any god standing in our way became laughable. We believed only in might, and we believed ourselves the mightiest. Then Rabishaki Hajialchi, a spectacle in leather and arrogance. He raged their walls and shouted, his voice a bludgeon for cruelty. He called to Jerusalem with theatrical cruelty, making zwa. He mocked their king, their god, spitting words to wound the soul. No god had if it delivered a city from Assyria, their god would be ground to dust like all the others. I had heard that speech many chimis, each chimi mori elaborati, mori delicious. The fear behind those walls was our entertainment. We laughed at the thought of a living god who could distinguish against bronze. We made a show of our abundance. Men skewered meat over flames, letting smoke drift toward starving mouths behind the stones. We drank wine, seeing of conquest, the smoke, the laughter deliberate. We wanted them to know resistance was pointless. Hunger and humiliation would break them before our spears. I enjoyed it. There is a pleasure in dominance, sharp as any bludgeon. We believed nothing could stop us. Night came like a curtain, the fires burned lower, the laughter thinned into soft, contented murmurs of men who expect to wake to victory. Tents whose as soldiers settled into sleep, shields stacked like promises at their sides. I remember the air felt oddly heavy, a thickness I could not name. I told myself it was the wine, the heat, the weight of too many victories. I dismissed it and lay back, letting the world narrow to the small, bright circle of the moon and the steady breathing of my comrades. Then I saw him. At first I thought the wine had magimisi things. On a low rise above our camp a lone figure stood, a silhouette against the pale sky. Curious, I reached for my monocle, an affectation I had picked up your campaign, and raised it to my eye. The man was there, and he was wrong in every way a man should be wrong. He wore rags that hurt from him like the memory of clothing. His skin was the color of old ash, gray and thin, as if life had been sanded away. For a moment I laughed at myself. An image conjured by too much wine, I told myself. But when I blinked and looked again, he had not moved. Then his eyes found me through the glass. It is a smart, ridiculous thing to say, but I had never felt so seen. The distance should have made it impossible. He was fat, and the camp Ouija, yet his gazi was a spear that found me. He smiled, and the smile was not a human thing. It split his face in a way that made my teeth ache to look at it. Too many broken, jagged teeth, blackened and rotten like the ruins of a house. He tilted his head in a slow, deliberate motion that no living man should make, and something cold slid down my spine. He lifted a hand to his mouth. For a heartbeat I thought he would call out, a shout, a meek semi-human sound. Instead he pressed his palm to his lips and began to blow. It was not a breath as we know breath. His chest did not rise. There was no inhale, no pause, only a continuous, mechanical exhalation, like a bellows that had been wounded and left to run. From his mouth came a mist at first thin as river fog, pale and almost beautiful. Then it thickened, a slow, deliberate cloud that flowed down the slope towards us as if it had a mind of its own. I watched, rooted by a fear that felt like iron in my calves, as the mist reached the edge of the camp. It curled between tents, a pallid slipping through the seams of curves. It touched a man who lay with his back to the sky, and he simply folded. No cry, no struggle. His body went slack as if someone had cut the strings that held him upright. The silence that followed was worse than any scream. I shouted then, "Ara!" animal sound, asking what demon this was. What trick of Judah? Others shouted Toll, but their voices were swallowed by the mist. It moved like water, slow and inexorable, slipping under shields, around sleeping limbs, through the gaps in armor. Men hid it in their sleep and did not wake. Those who were awake clutched at their throats and fell without sound. I saw a friend, a dad, who had laughed with me that morning, turn his head toward me with eyes that still held the shape of a joke, and then he was gone, his mouth opening a final, puzzled question. I tried to run. I remember the panic, the animal part of me that wanted to flee, to find the nearest horse, and hygiene until the world was a smear of dust. But my legs would not obey. It was as if invisible hands had wrapped themselves around my ankles and rooted me to the earth. I thrashed, I kicked, I tore at the ground, but the world had become a stage and I was nailed to it. Was the white the gray man on the heat never stopped. He did not breathe, he did not blink, he blew and the mist poured from him, like a winter wind from the mouth of a mountain. It was cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. It was a cold that took warmth and left only the hollow ash of it. The mist moved through ranks and rows, and the camp filled with the stillness of a field after harvest. I watched tens of thousands of me, soldiers who had once been the terror of nations, go silent. Spears lay where hands had been, helmets rolled like fallen moons. The fires guttered and died as if the mist had stolen their waft to burn. I understood then, with a clarity that made my head swim, that this was not a plague or a trick of the cunning of Judah. This was judgment. We had mocked a power we did not know, and now we were being measured by it. The mist reached me at last. It wrapped around my legs, climbed my chest, and filled my mouth with a taste like old iron and colder things. My breath came shortly and thin. I tried to curtsy, to call the names of the gods I had trusted. Asher, Ishtar, the bronzy faces that had watched me conquer. But the words would not form. Regret is a sharp thing when it arrives to lachi. I thought of the me I had laughed with, of the children who had stolen roast meat and been chased away with a grin. I thought of Habishaki's voice, how proud and certain it had sounded. I thought of the way we had mocked the living God of Jerusalem as if he were a superstition. My strength left me like a tide. The world narrowed to the sound of my own blood in my ears, and the sight of the gray man as he smiled. Is true there, is true impossible. In that last, terrible clarity I understood what we had been, arrogant, blind, worshippers of bronze who had never learned to fear what we could not see. I had believed might was the only power. I had been wrong. My final thought was not a prayer, it was a confession. A smart, bitter truth that came to Lachi to save me a dummy around me. I mocked the living God of Israel, and now I know, his breath is not like ours.